My name is Mary Alton, and I'm 36 years old. In 2010, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. It was July of 2010 when I went into my family doctor, and from x-rays that had been taken earlier that summer, he told me that it looked like a strong possibility that I had some type of lymphoma. So by around September, I was scheduled in for a biopsy with a surgeon in Kingston. Before that, I had gone through a number of different tests, x-rays, blood work, after seeing an oncologist in Belleville. I don't think I was frightened so much, I just wanted answers. So one thing I was really pleased about is how my oncologist was very aggressive in terms of making sure we scheduled everything in within a matter of a month, really. When I got my first biopsy in September, it took about a month for me to get the results back. And the day I walked into my oncologist's office to receive the actual report back from the pathologist, in my heart I really felt that I was going to get a cancer diagnosis. Something just told me that that was my journey, and that is what I was going to go through. When I sat down in my oncologist's office, and it was probably late October, beginning of November of 2010, I could see as soon as I walked in the room that he was going to tell me I had cancer. And the first question he asked me was, "Have you ever smoked?" I was a little confused at that point, but of course I answered him no. And I didn't expect what came out of his mouth next. He told me that the biopsy results had shown that I had stage 3 lung cancer. And I was shocked. You know, I'd never smoked, I never had any idea that lung cancer could be a possibility. When I asked him what kind of prognosis stage 3 lung cancer had, he told me that there was a 15% probability that I might be cured from it. And I didn't know what to say. You know, I double checked and I said, "Did you say 50 or 15? And he said 15. He told me that he just got a call from the pathologist over at Kingston, and there had been some sort of mix-up with my pathology report. So he said, "We still need to find out more information." And I didn't know whether I should be relieved or angry or what. So I left and I just went home and I talked to my dad and I told him what had happened. And then I just waited. And the next day my surgeon had actually called me to also relay the results of the biopsy, and he had the same lung cancer report, or lung cancer diagnosis, I should say. And immediately when he was talking to me, I could hear in his voice the same sort of very somber feel and expression. And I said to him, I said, "Do you know that there seems to be some confusion, and 2 different pathologists were looking at this report?" And he paused and he didn't say anything for a minute, and then he said, "All I have is what's on my desk." He ended up calling me about 2 hours later, and he told me that my biopsy sample had been mixed up with another one of his patients. So the lung cancer diagnosis was actually not mine. My name was put on that particular sample, but it wasn't actually my sample. When I first found out about having cancer, I think it was just wanting to know, okay, what do we need to do? How do we get this treated? And wanting to just move forward. I didn't really at any point in time think, am I going to die from this? Just because I was, 34 at the time. I was healthy. I'd never been sick with anything serious. Death did not even cross my mind for a second. But in that moment, sitting in the doctor's office with that incorrect diagnosis, I had to contemplate it. So from that moment on, when I realized, okay, whatever I'm dealing with, probably I'm still going to survive this, it really made me approach how I dealt with everything from that point on in a much more positive way, because I knew that I felt grateful. I knew I had a lot to be happy about with lymphoma being my potential diagnosis, but I also recognized and felt very sad that someone else did receive that diagnosis. And I really felt like I got a break. So it took me another probably, I'd say 3 or 4 months before I actually found out for sure that I had cancer. It was February of 2011 that I actually ended up going in to get a second biopsy, because there was just a lot of question marks. I got referred to a new hematologist. He thought that the test results weren't conclusive enough. He questioned whether or not I had cancer, which was another shock. And for me, I needed answers. So I really became very proactive. And I made a decision that I wasn't just a patient, I was in charge of my own health care. So I really pushed my doctor to allow me to have a second biopsy. He did not think it was in my best interest. He did not encourage me to do it. And I just said, you know what, I need to do this. I need to know. So I had my second biopsy in February of 2011, and a few weeks later they made a final diagnosis, confirmed I had lymphoma, and the only unusual thing was they weren't able to classify it. So by March 2011, I started chemo, and I took me probably about 4.5 months of treatment, and I went in every few weeks to have my chemotherapy at the cancer clinic, and it took probably about 4 hours for me to go in. And you know what? I did my best to just be positive. You know, I would take in a book and some music and my computer, and I would journal while I was having my treatments done. I would just be as relaxed as possible, and every time I went in, I just counted down and said, okay, you know, that's one less treatment I have to do. And I really made a conscious effort just to live my life. You know, I was single, I didn't have any children, which is still the case now, and I really just made a conscious effort to go out and do things, spend time with my friends, go to a movie even if it meant going by myself. By the end of the summer, I was finished my chemotherapy, and I had just some tests to do to make sure that my cancer was in remission. And by August 2011, I got that confirmation from my doctor. So that was just over a year ago, and I am now still in remission. My health has been great. My state of mind has been wonderful because I know what I went through, but I've still moved on with my life, and it was a part of my life, but it's not something that I always think about. You know, in that moment, yes, of course you're consumed with it. It takes all your energy just to cope with what you're going through. But now, in some ways, I almost have to look and say, did that actually happen to me? Did I experience it? One of the biggest things that really were helpful to me was my father. He really was my rock throughout all of this, in terms of just keeping things at a level that were manageable. He was really good with not overreacting, not getting really freaked out about all these things that were happening. You know, he and I really share a lot of similarities in our personality. So he helped me to really keep grounded. I had a few friends who were really, really fantastic at just being my friend as normal. My one girlfriend, who I've known for 20 years, said, you know, I don't know what to say. You know, I don't know what to offer that can be of support and help. And I said, you're doing it. You're here. You're treating me the same as you've always treated me. At times it was a little bit lonely. I'm not going to lie, because I wasn't in a situation where I had a lot of people who reached out to me. I think people were uncomfortable, maybe didn't know what to do, what to say. So it was isolating in many ways. If I could offer something to anybody who gets diagnosed with cancer and feels lost, know that you're not alone, but also know that really, like anything in life, any challenge, anything that you go through, you can make a choice about how you want to live your life. in spite of what you're going through. Your healthcare team is there to work for you. So if you can take time, do some research, know what your options are, and really put your doctors to task, so then you make sure you get out of your treatment what you want to get out of it. That's probably the best advice I can offer to anybody. And just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.